Hello, and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly program where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. The standard disclaimer applies. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, send questions or comments to our Twitter page at Mason Roundtable, or on the Facebook event page for episode 129, Lodge Participation. My name is John Ruart. I'm a past master of the Patriot Lodge in number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia, an academic lodge, and I will hand it off to Jason Richards for his introduction.
Hey everybody, Jason Richards, Senior Warden of Acacia Lodge number 16 in good old Clifton, Virginia.
Thank you, Jason. Juan Sepulveda, introduce yourself, please.
Hello, Juan Sepulveda here from The Winding Stairs Freemasonry Podcast and a member of Orange Blossom Lodge number 80 in Kissimmee, Florida.
Thank you, Juan. Nick Johnson.
Nick Johnson, Corinthian Lodge number 67 in Big Time, Farmington, Minnesota.
Nick. And in the mobile masonry van, Robert Johnson.
Hey guys, Robert Johnson here from the Whence Came You podcast, past master of Waukegan Lodge number 78, current secretary, and yeah, coming to you live from the Masonic, would you call it Masonic Masonry van?
Sure, it's like the mystery van, but
yeah, that's cool. I mean, I want to be manly about it, so I'll say it's a Jeep. You can still call it a van.
Windowless club wagon.
Yes, a windowless club wagon.
Free candy.
So,
Pokey spot.
it is not a pokey spot. No. So, yeah, cool. Thanks, guys.
Good. Thanks for pulling off to the side and driving safe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Masonic news is pretty light this week, but I know Jason found something at the very last minute. So, Jason, take it away.
Yeah, just wanted everybody to know I'm going to be a dad. That's not Masonic news.
Wait, what?
But so the guys have known this for a couple weeks now. Some a little bit longer, but I'm entering the Fathers Club with. So I'll finally join the illustrious ranks of the rest of the TMR guys. So
Not so illustrious.
What?
Not so illustrious.
Not so illustrious. Yes, I am. Yes, like cleaning dirty diapers and diaper dirt off of everything imaginable will be lots of fun. But yeah, wife's due in January, so we're very excited and slightly terrified. So it'll be good. But there's only one. We have confirmed there's only one.
Well, that's super exciting. So,
Awesome. Congrats.
Thanks,
guys.
We've been ragging on you and all the way back to our Masonic Dads episode where you felt out of place.
Well, you almost didn't let me take part in Masonic Dads.
You were almost fired.
Yeah, I was almost fired for that episode. No more when we have Masonic Dads Part 2, which will be after January.
Yeah, so we're going to save some good stuff for that. We'll let you come back and say, I don't know how you guys did it.
I'm going to have PTSD. It's like, I keep showering, but I just can't get it off me. Yeah.
Post-trimester stress disorder.
Yes. So yeah, thanks for the indulgence, but Masonic news really was non-existent this week.
Well, that's huge. That is huge. So, congratulations.
Yeah. It's like the past bastard wasn't even funny this week, so.
Well, I'm sure now that you've said something about you having a kid, completing the system that we've got going on here, maybe it'll come up. Okay, let's go over to the Masonic Trivia question of the week, also known as the Masonic Monday question.
On Tuesday.
On Tuesday. Nick.
Whoa. Well, thank you very much.
What did you call him?
I think he said or something like that. So the answer for last week was really It was an easy one. I knew I threw a softball, but it was Cy Young, who was a exceedingly good pitcher, but during the dead ball era, so it wasn't. I'm going to say it. His accomplishments were great, just not that great. So congratulations to Mike Hambrecht, Josh Shear, Michael Laidlaw, Frank Scrobot, Chris Serrato, Ed Potter, Joey Boyer, Heath Garrett, Christopher Croto, Justin Miller, Jonathan Primo, and Brad Parsons, and I think anybody else? I think that's it. Heath Garrett, I think I said him. So congratulations, guys. You did a fantastic job on that particular question. Now, going back to a little bit of a harder one for the week of August 15th, 2016. When the Grand Lodge of the Grande Loge Nationale Française was formed, it was focused exclusively on the rectified Scottish Rite. However, after its formation, there was a movement to revive the French Rite in France. It was from this country that the French Rite was re-imported back to France. Name that country. When you have your answer, please send an email to masonicmonday@gmail.com. Don't forget to include your lodge name, your lodge name, and the hashtag. What is it? Are there any comic book movies? How about hashtag Suicide Squad is #1? What? Back to you, John.
Yeah, so not ever going to happen.
No. Don't you want to wear that shirt, though? Daddy's little whatever it is? Muppet, I don't know. The little shirt she's wearing.
I didn't watch the movie
Oh.
because I wanted those 2 hours of my life.
Opportunity cost.
Yes.
Just think you would have to pay to see it. That's the best part.
So, now, as far as pop culture goes, one thing that I wanted to throw in this week, totally unrelated to the show, is I am so jazzed up that tonight, instead of drinking a beer on the show, I'm drinking, that's right, Crystal Pepsi. All the way back from 1993. Not this bottle in particular, but they have done a short, limited supply of Crystal Pepsi, and it tastes as good as I remember it. So
It probably tastes remarkably like Pepsi.
It does.
You know what? They found it somewhere in a warehouse, and they're like, "We got it now, guys. We can do it."
I am also drinking something special. Never mind.
It's milk.
It's just milk.
It's just milk. Hey, so I would have loved to have had that for our show with Tom Acousti, talking about the dial-up internet masonry. That would have been great to go back to 1993 for the taste of Crystal Pepsi.
Yeah, but that's never gonna happen.
Yes. Good stuff. Okay.
Tom's been banned from the show.
One and done.
Yes. Actually, it was 2 and done.
Oh yeah.
Moving on to it was your pizza and ranch deal. So there you go.
Avoid the
Don't
noise.
speak of it.
All these kids are like, I don't know.
Hey, what are we supposed to be talking about tonight?
Great. Good segue. Lodge participation. This is one that we just kind of put in the hat, and it came up this week. We spun the wheel, and we ended up on how do we encourage lodge participation. And as we were kicking around the idea, Juan and I were kind of figuring things out. Do we include specifically how do we get people to come to lodge, and or how do we get greater involvement in some of the lodge activities and charities and events that lodges may have? So we're going to be wide and open about that. And there's no format tonight, no special guest. So we're just going to go off the top of our heads of tried and true methods that we've seen to encourage lodge participation at your lodge and your lodge events. So starting with me, I'll throw out the first one off the top of my head, which is let's stick with traditions. If your lodge has been around long enough, like most of ours, then there are these traditional type events that your lodge may have, whether it's a pancake breakfast, whether it is a charity that you always give to every year, whether it's a holiday function, whether it be a barbecue or a Christmas event, those kind of things. Stick with those, right? Because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. However, if you're trying to introduce a new concept or a new activity or a new event, backed by science, I want to recommend a way that you bundle this new event with your traditional event, right? So just like when you're building habits, you want to bundle a new routine with an old habit. Similarly, you should take some of these new ideas that you may want to do as Worshipful Master or as officers of the lodge, and maybe introduce a new add-on to an event that's already going on. So if there's already a pancake breakfast going on, maybe you might also want to include this new gun raffle to go along with it while everyone's already there, right? That's one idea.
If it's lawful in your jurisdiction.
If it's lawful in your jurisdiction. We don't do gun raffles in Virginia.
So, John, I think it's really interesting that you're falling back on traditions, because I have never ever seen you do that before. So a lot of times I cringe when people say, but that, why are we still doing pancake breakfast? Because we've always done it that way. Acacia had tried to revive this quarterly or monthly breakfast, because some of the past masters who have been around for a number of years said, oh, Acacia used to do this breakfast. It was the talk of the district, and everybody showed up, and let's try to revive that. And it's like, dudes, the district moved on, and it's the same people cooking a lot of breakfast for maybe 10 people every single time. So you have to be smart about working with your traditions. If it ain't broke, don't fix it when it comes to traditions. However, stop trying to go back to the good old glory days if you try something out and it simply just doesn't work in today's culture or today's demands.
I think there's a good opportunity to get feedback. In business, some of the best decisions you can make are decisions that are a result of careful analysis. So if you have some sort of data, look at that data and make decisions based on it. For example, you have Masters and Wardens meetings or a district meeting where the officers of the lodge get together to share ideas. Highlight the ones that really work. Highlight the ideas that really were profitable or that had a lot of participation, depending on what your goal is. Let's say your goal is to get fellowship, to get people to really show up and have a good time. Find out what is working in your district. I think that's very important. And just because something is a romantic thought, don't go for it. Like, oh, I loved it when we used to do the flapjacks back in '84. Okay, maybe it worked then, but just because it worked then doesn't mean it works now. So find out what's working now and try to work that into your schedule.
I can kind of use an example from when I took over as junior warden, and my lodge was struggling over a corn dog stand. That's right, a corn dog stand, because there's nothing that is more Masonic than breaded hot dogs on a stick. And so we fought for 2 years, well, not really fought, but discussed expanding and making this better and bigger and whatever. Finally, luckily, it never went anywhere. Until I sat in the East, and I said, you know what? Instead of putting pancake batter on hot dogs, we'll just do a waffle breakfast for scholarships, right? Now, that's not totally my speed. I'm not really a waffle dude, not really a pancake dude. But you know what? It's pretty much the most attended event in my lodge. Not sure what that says about Masonry. Maybe it's that we like our carbohydrates. But it is, without a doubt, one of the best attended. And it's, I think, because we changed the focus. The focus was on an actual thing. When we were doing the corn dog stand, it was raising money for the lodge. Made no sense. Made no sense because there was no purpose. It was purposeless and pointless.
Did it have a purpose?
Just making money. That was pretty much it, just for the lodge. Even though the lodge is fine financially, so it never made any sense. It was stupid, just idiotic. So we switched to this, and I said, you know what? We're going to focus on one thing and one thing only: scholarships. And people, when they saw that it was purpose-driven, purpose-focused, they jumped right in, both feet. I mean, we pretty much get at least, I'd say, a quarter of the lodge either showing up or helping out in this event, just because it's like the tent pole for our entire year.
Cool. Okay, Juan, do you have another suggestion for encouraging lodge participation?
Yes. Another business concept that I think it's very useful in trying to find a sweet spot with your events is iterations. If you did, let's say, a pancake breakfast, try to find a way to gauge what people really liked about it and what people hated about it, and then you make the necessary changes. Let's say you can't stop the pancake breakfast, and it has a dwindle of participation, but you might be able to increase the participation if you iterate, if you change it a little bit, modify it so that it includes something that's novel, something that's attractive, something that can give it an opportunity to thrive. And I'll give you an example. If you were to find out a good recipe for cronuts, like the croissant donuts, and you make that Saturday, well, you have the pancake breakfast as usual, but you focus on promoting that we're going to have like Masonic, donut croissants or whatever. Anything that's novel like that has a potential of increasing participation.
And waistlines.
And waistlines, yeah. Yeah, there's a correlation there between happiness and caloric intake. So take advantage of it.
Nice. Thank you, Juan. Nick, your idea.
Well, I'm going to start with my first idea is that you need to identify your competitors. And here's the competitors that we have. Their names are Netflix, cable television, and working long hours, right?
Pokemon Go.
So, yeah, or Pokemon Go, which, if you're lucky,
And
in your
maybe
lodge as a GM,
family.
Family.
Yeah.
Seriously, they all should be in front of the TV with you, right?
That's true. So if we go to virtual masonry, then you can have your headphones on and like a screen protector, and then like have your wife on the couch with you.
Oh man, this sounds awesome.
Yeah.
This is the best.
This is how we're gonna save masonry right here.
Right there, boom. But so your competitors, right, are television, all these other things, right? So many different focuses, right? So if you're not putting forward a quality product, and that's particularly if you're not doing good ritual work, good work in general, and not having a purpose-focused meeting, people are going to sit there and say, well, I could listen to Walter White, say, I am the danger, or I could come here and say, we got to pay the bills. And nobody wants to do that. And that's the thing that I get it back in the 50s, right, when there were 3 channels. Made perfect sense, right? I mean, people were running away from their TVs because you can't deal with Howdy Doody anymore. But now, I mean, we are dealing with so much different stuff competing for our attention. And if Lodge is merely just a business meeting that could be accomplished in an email chain, nobody's going to show up. So you need to identify what is pulling your guys away and ask them. I mean, it could be that that's their job or something like that that's keeping them away. But if you're not on the floor putting out your best team, making masonry outstanding, don't expect people to keep coming out of anything out of either being in an officer's chair or just out of this necessity, this feeling of completeness based on just being in masonry.
I kind of see that with Masonic events in general, especially like in the district. That we live in, John and I work and live in such a a robust Masonic district where there's stuff going on all the time, and I have district officers who put on an event, and then they're really, really upset that nobody ever shows up. I'm like, your event consisted of you reading something out of a binder.
Yeah, so I have to second this. You don't believe how busy our district is. We would have something literally every day of the week if our Grand Lodge didn't prohibit work on Sundays. I mean, there would be something to do, at least one thing, probably 3 things every day of the week, every day of the year. So, yeah, when you're competing with other lodges, so know your competitors. You've got to know that you're not going to go up against another event, even in your district, right? That if some lodge has its traditional strawberry night, you don't plan something when they have that date booked every year.
So,
But, and John, when you had at the Patriot Lodge, I think Brett Morris was there. How full was that particular event?
So this is here we go. Okay. So I talked about this a little bit when we did academic lodges, but because of what we just talked about, when you're a brand new lodge after 30 years, the first lodge in the entire state in over 30 years, you don't have much of a choice of what date and time your stated meetings are. So we've got the 3rd Friday of the month. And lodges already had their own individual ritual practices going on, like
officer meetings
in our own district. And so when you
the
try
district-wide ritual school twice a year, hey, guess what? The ritual school didn't move.
So we have to get dispensation for a ritual school. It blows my mind. But serenity now. Moving on. Robert,
How to tell when people have not bought into a concept. 101. Yeah.
Robert
Well,
Johnson.
and that could lead into another idea, which is, are we doing too much? I mean, lodge participation, are we doing too much in Masonry? Because, like me, I have too many flippin' bodies that I'm in, right? My chapter and council are actually kind of reducing down the number of meetings that we have to the constitutional required, because we were burning out guys so fast.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe lodge less is more. I know in America, I live in Minnesota, smorgasbords, buffets, they're all over the place. But sometimes, you don't need so much food,
Supersize my masonry.
The issue is, though, Masonry is such a beautiful bureaucracy. In the sense that we latch on to things that are either tradition or perceived as tradition to include standing events, standing meetings, and we ultimately overcommit because someone's feelings are going to be hurt if we cut something.
Yep.
And it's crap.
Robert, give us an idea of something to bring people in for lodge events.
Well, first of all, I was going to go back to something that you said, or Jason said, was people aren't going to show up to an event where people are reading out of a binder. But then you said you have events happening every day in your district, and the events are not well. The events are not well attended, and this kind of thing.
It's the same 10 people at each one.
So, what is the inherent issue there? I mean, is the Grand Lodge mandate like what days you're allowed to do stuff, and how does that even work for you guys? I mean, like for instance in Illinois, if we decide to have a district school, it's literally whenever the district school wants to do it, and they schedule the dates with the lodges. It's not something that's like mandated by a Grand Lodge, I guess. So how does that work? I mean, are they ultimately in charge of the schedule, and are they at fault?
So again, nothing on Sunday, so now you only have 6 days out of the week. And when you have a very active district, then you're limited. I mean, there's not much you can do about that. There's not much wiggle room.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, with Masonic unity in a district, though, you would think that certain lodges would say, listen, we've been doing this thing for 15 years, and we've had the same 10 people here every year. Why don't we try to get the masters and wardens of all 7 lodges in our district to come together and create one really kick-ass event?
Sure. So, a couple things on that. One, our district's too big. Let's call for that.
How many lodges are in your district?
So we have 7. And it covers like 3 counties almost. So, show to split the district. That's problem 1. And then problem 2 is, well, if you split the district, then now you by default have a smaller area to work with. You have more unity of effort right there. And I think we alluded to this a little bit before. I mean, this is just kind of going on a little tangent, but because of DC traffic, getting to another lodge in your district can take an hour and a half to 2 hours.
And see, that's a little wild for me. Like in my district, I have 7 lodges, all of which are less than 30 minutes away.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Not around here.
And so the issue with that, of course, is, bringing it back to this topic, is that the participation is low, but we're looking at like you have 7 lodges within 35 all minutes of each other, right? So obviously, is there enough Masons to even necessitate that many lodges? You guys are talking about consolidating and all this stuff, but nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to be the people to do that, and I understand. So back to topic, though. I mean, how do you get guys to come to your lodge? I mean, I wonder about this also. I mean, we've got disparities in pricing in our district, where like dues, for instance, start to finish at to become a Master Mason at one lodge is $210. At my lodge, it's $620. What are they getting out of a value? So how do you get guys? There has to be a value, and I think it needs to be more than a complimentary shot cannon glass for a festive board.
I think a lot of it has to do with atmosphere, at least, talking from my perspective, just because Patriot Lodge, John's Lodge, is very unique in the sense that you get your Masonic fix and your George Mason University camaraderie fix as well, so that's an automatic draw. So anybody who's affiliated with the university, that's generally speaking where they want to go, or the lodge with which they want to affiliate if they're a member of another lodge. For Acacia, we have the luxury of having some of the nicest guys I've ever met, and the hospitality at Acacia, as Robert, you well know, is just over the top, and so it's just a wonderful country atmosphere. So those,
like, the draw for Acacia to me was immediately you walk in, it's a dining room that I've seen before. It's a kitchen that I've seen before. But when you get to that lodge room, that is so unique, and I think that in and of itself is a huge draw, just to go there to see something. I mean, it makes things a little bit unique. So the atmosphere is definitely big.
So I'm so active in Acacia. Officer obligations aside, I am active in Acacia. I keep coming back to Acacia every chance I get because I am genuinely excited about being around the guys in that lodge.
Fair point. So I did have another point that we could bring up to encourage lodge participation. Communication is key. It's critical. And I think the big takeaway that I want to share is communicate, 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 communicate. If you think that you've communicated enough, you haven't. You need to find new ways to communicate more. It's just a lesson learned during my year as a worshipful master. One thing that was kind of commonplace was you would courtesy copy emails of events that you were holding to other district lodge officers, as well as the worshipful masters of the lodges in the other district, the other lodges in the district. That would assume that those worshipful masters then forwarded that on to their brethren of their lodge. And you know what happens when you assume? You don't get those emails forwarded. So um, now we got Facebook, we've got Eventbrite, we've got Snapchat and Instagram, and you name it. Definitely use every means possible to include phone calls, to include snail mail. If you really want to encourage participation at an event, go through every media means necessary because there are going to be brethren that we talked about before. Some brethren don't even have email and won't ever get email. So you have to cater to those if you want them to show up. So communicate, and communicate.
To that point, it's so critical too, because we use a call 'em all system where we robocall everybody. So that takes care of one demographic. That as anybody who does any kind of promotion for anything, and even within the Masonic Roundtable scope, right? So the listeners out there, you guys probably already know that we try to get this show to you every possible way that you might actually want to listen to it in. Maybe you don't like watching it on YouTube. Maybe you like listening to it on TuneIn, right? So we're on TuneIn. Maybe you want to see it on YouTube, so you watch it on YouTube rather than getting it on a podcast. And it's the same way with Lodge Communications. And it goes, like, I send out 3 versions of emails, essentially. Like, I send one out that comes out from just a Google address from me as a Lodge secretary to my email list. Then they get the MailChimp version. And then just in case those get to spam, I send it using a Grand Lodge email system in Maury. And so they probably get bombarded with all 3. But I don't care, because they're going to get the message at least once, hopefully. Does it work? Sometimes. Do people complain about getting too many emails? I get a couple of those. But it's necessary, I think. Facebook, too.
Another point on that is to divide and conquer. Like right now, one of the biggest things is that you'll have 7 really active brothers trying to do everything in the lodge, and whenever they don't get the response that they expected, they'll get discouraged. So it's a never-ending cycle. So trying to find, especially some of the newer members, if you have some very eager new brothers, even entered apprentices, there's nothing against them being able to reach out to people. So you could task or you can delegate, okay, here are 5 people that I would like for you to call, introduce yourself, and make sure that when they show up, you're there to say hello. And you can get 3 people to do that, and you increase not only the participation, but also how welcoming it feels. Imagine that when you show up, there's this little, this young whippersnapper coming and say, hey, I spoke with you on the phone, I'm glad that you made it, thank you for coming out, and gives brothers even an opportunity to bond even more. So if you feel like you're doing too much, find someone to help you, because then otherwise there's no end in sight. So
Fair point. Nick.
And, I would also add, because I think I'll leapfrog off of Juan's comments in that there's a lodge here, Braden Lodge. It's one of my favorite lodges in the state, and if you ever have a chance to visit it, you ought to, because it's excellent. And what they do is they have a culture that is very focused on brotherhood, but not in the way that you and I or anybody else would think about it. I mean, these guys, essentially, they become a family. It's like an actual family in which they exist. I mean, the Braden guys, they get huge participation. Everybody knows about everybody's families. They babysit each other's kids. They exist outside of the lodge walls, and that's a huge deal. Because I think the problem is a lot of us, and I'm going to steal this from a buddy of mine, but Masonry isn't on the top of our list. It's not even the 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Might be down to the 5th, 6th. In terms of things that we do in our life, right? I mean, even in Masonry's ritual work, it says that, right? So to bump it up a little bit, by creating Masonry as a family, and I'm not talking about Masonic family, youth groups, 42. I'm talking about just, this idea that you as the brothers in the lodge are not just, showing up once a month saying, hey Bob, how's it going? Hey Bob. Hey, and then just going home, right, and turning off the lights and leaving, but instead creating a culture within the lodge in which you are essentially a family, where you're comfortable with your kids hanging out with their kids and doing things like that. And I think it is an extremely, extremely successful lodge because it focuses not just on the lodge business and the four walls of the lodge, but it focuses on the lodge as a group of brothers and creating a tie. I mean, it takes a long time to become a member of that lodge because you're spending almost a year just hanging out and becoming friends first. And I think that's powerful, and that's the way you can really create a culture at the very beginning, and you've got lodge participation built in.
What do you think about the idea, though, that all of these things are great, but if you're not addressing why they joined, then it means nothing? How do you know how to meet what they want?
Ask.
And what happens if one guy's like, I want to hear about the golden verses of Pythagoras, and one guy says, I just want to be a Shriner?
Well, the good news is that you can be both a Shriner and a Blue Lodge Mason. Some would argue that point. But it's like, great, you're in Blue Lodge here, so what do you want to learn about in Blue Lodge here?
It's like
I'd say that for anybody who's like, I want to learn about the Royal Arch. I want to learn about Scottish Rite. It's like, okay, go learn about those things.
So, like, is there a universal something that's why they keep coming back to Blue Lodge? Like, for you, you're in the 10%. You know what I mean? You're the 10% that somebody's going to yell at me for this, but I think 90% of the Masons pay dues so that the active 10% have a building to work in, right? Like,
I can see that.
What brings that 10% always continually back? Why do we have that participation? What makes that 10% active and participating?
A mixture of guilt and determination. and a genuine love for the craft.
I'll use Jason's comment from early in the day. Stockholm Syndrome.
That's a really good point, because like with a lot of the guys you're talking about that are in the 10%, how many of them are past masters? I'd say a number of them, right? How many of them are officers, right? And so then you look at the ones that are kind of outside of the officers line. If you're not given a purpose in the lodge, and this is a defect in Masonry that I think should be addressed at some point, is that if you're not an officer, if you ain't one, you ain't one. You know what I mean? And you can see it in so many lodges. These guys come in. I mean, when you become a Mason, you have actively taken a step to join a lodge. You have taken that step. You want to be there. You literally wrote a check saying, I want to be here. You went through 3 degrees finding nights off so you could be here, right? But then you get there and you find out that there's a different culture within the lodge that may be what you either expected, or you just get kind of left out in the cold. I mean, you might be lucky and jump to a lodge that is on the ropes, and you get thrown in the officers line, and you're like, whoa, this is pretty sweet, this is cool, right? Or you jump into Shrine because you've discovered something that, oh, this is really fun, right? But you get left out in the cold in so many cases, and I think it's a defect that could easily be addressed. But it's so entrenched at this point that attacking the officers line and finding ways to encourage participation with those guys that do not have a title is going to be one of the biggest struggles that we're going to continually face throughout even this new era.
But don't you have enough opportunities for committees and committee chairs to like spread the workload somehow? Because
Yeah.
perhaps it's not being used efficiently, because you could even come up with your own committee. At least in our district, I can come up with the committee for video games and music, and they just make sure that there's always something available regarding that. And I guess if I don't use that as a tool to increase participation, well, it's my bad,
Oh, absolutely, and I absolutely agree with you on that. I mean, a lot of Masonic clubs get started by non-Masons because they're looking for something to do. I mean, if you look at the Knights of St. Andrew, it was literally created by guys that aren't red or white hats so that they could have something to do in Scottish Rite. Of course, then at the same time, you've also got built into a lot of these Grand Lodge codes. To be this, you have to be that. To be a jurisprudence person, you have to be a past master, or to be a this, you have to be a warden, right? To participate in the Masters and Wardens deals, you have to be, and so I think we create this unnecessary divide amongst brothers, and I absolutely agree with you. This idea of Masonic clubs, Masonic interests, pushing this idea, especially from the ranks, because essentially, we've only got in my state, 300 lodges. So that's only 300 worshipful masters that are going to be made out of the 13,000 Masons that we have in the state. That's not that many, and it's always going to be that differential. So you have to find something for these guys to want to come back, and you have to kind of break. And I think it's because Masonry, when it was at its strongest, was that it's also most stratified after the wars. It made perfect sense. These guys came back, they came from a structure that was stratified, so might as well build one here the same way, right? But I don't think it's going to work anymore. Lodges are flattening out so fast.
So I think the last question I'll have for you is kind of what we alluded to in the beginning, is while talking about lodge events, does this also apply for lodge participation in our tiled events? Does everything that we've talked about still apply?
Yes.
Strategy need to change?
Absolutely. It still applies because ostensibly you should have some sort of aspect of Masonic education in your tiled meetings. If you want to bring Masons back to your lodge and have them attend your tiled meetings, there needs to be some aspect of a tiled meeting that's more than just going through the lodge business and paying the bills. And for a lot of folks, that's where the Masonic program comes in, or the Worshipful Masters program. So you can actually take all of these little tidbits that we've been talking about over the past 45 minutes and apply those directly to your business meeting. You get through the business quickly, but then you have a traditional program that the lodge puts on every year. We have a past master's degree, not to be confused with the one in the York Rite, that we confer on our outgoing worshipful master every single January, and it's a riot. It's a tradition that's always a lot of fun, and it brings Masons back to the lodge for the January stated. There are so many different things that you can do to make your business meeting more than just the business meeting. And if you do that and you give Masons a reason to come, then you're going to find that more and more Masons are going to be showing up to your stateds.
I think we all can echo that. Let's go right ahead to social media then, Jason. What are they saying on the Facebooks and the Twitters and the interwebs?
Okay, so Brother RJ Hughes asks a really good question. He asks, does over-participation by a dedicated few lead to no participation by many?
I think so. I think on several occasions, I know men in my district who attend every single thing, and those same brothers, there is something about them that is not pleasing to the others. And they would rather just not be there and step away completely until those people are gone. Or, in some cases, they are not fans of the brother's spouse.
So we'll even go beyond that. I mean, so yes, if there's personality conflicts aside, yeah, we need to be sensitive to that. But even just in the general sense, where if someone's always volunteering for this, if you're a new guy, you might not know where to jump in. That was going to save one part for a final thought, but I think it goes into this, that everyone should have a job, right? If you have a lodge event, give everyone a job, and that's one way to get people to coming back. So even though Bob's always been flipping the pancakes since 1986, great, Bob can still flip the pancakes, but we need now a door greeter. We now need someone who is part of the social media committee to go, there's always a job you can give some brethren, and more importantly, find their strengths and exploit that.
I have an apocryphal story that was told to me by a brother who went to the Grand Lodge of the Philippines. So he was in the Philippines for a short time, and he said what they do with their new, not even candidates, petitioners, is they have to spend a year essentially serving the meals, working in the kitchen, doing the dishes, before they're even given a petition. At that point, they then get to sign it after the brothers have decided if the work that they've done has gotten them there, right? And what it does, and I know it sounds like this idea of, making these guys have to work to do something, but I think it creates a culture. Again, I'm going back to this idea of a lodge culture, that you have to create in all these guys this idea that they have buy-in in the lodge, that they're in the lodge, and that the value that they're adding into the lodge is meaningful. Because so many of these guys, they just kind of, they work for a little bit, and they see that, this guy's got this job, he's always had this job because this is his part, and he's had this part forever. He's always going to play that third part, and he's always third base, and never going to leave that spot. Well, seriously. I do the staircase lecture. If I could pass that bad boy off to anybody, I'd be more than happy to. So anybody in my lodge, hear me right now. Keep working on it. I will teach you to take that job. Take it from me, because spread the wealth. That's what I'm trying to do.
So I think you really hit the nail on the head here, Nick, when it comes to investment. That's why you see so many past masters who are always the ones who keep showing up, night after night, because they have a strong tie, a strong investment in that lodge, in the success of that lodge. And I think that's where you get a lot of that 10%. So, brother, moving on, brother Pat Chalka from Wisconsin mentions that regarding tiled meetings, promote the agenda and publish it. If you want your members to come, you need to tell them why they're coming. And I think that is fantastic advice. Taking a page out of John Rourke's book, he did a lot of marketing for his events all throughout his year in the East at Patriot. And he got a lot of brethren there for his events because of that marketing and that forward-leaning aspect of his year.
Yeah, I'm trying to find an example of a whole flyer that I put together. But keep going.
So, brother Mike Hombrecht says Chris Hodap has suggested video game nights and movie nights.
Reading Knights of the North, are we? Lawful Pursuit has quite a few great ideas as far as getting brothers to come down. And, the key to certain amounts, I think, of participation is to allow brothers to do fun things like that give them, as Jason put it, a tie to the lodge. Even if it's, video games or whatever. I mean, there are cases all throughout history of men and women having something to do after work. And how many of you know a guy who probably goes to the bar after work every day? I mean, I live in the Midwest. I know lots of guys like that. That's what they do, and they stay there all night. Right? I mean, that's their thing. There are guys who go and they play Dungeons and Dragons every Tuesday. That's what Daniel Doc Gentry does, a Midnight Freemason contributor. He's all in on D&D, right? What if you could take those things and bring them to Lodge and build some kind of other sense of community or affinity there, and then the degree work and the ritual and the business almost becomes, and maybe it shouldn't become this way, but the second-hand part, outside of it's in addition to the fellowship that exists.
Well, if you remember back to our Swedish Rite episode, that's actually the way the Swedish Rite, typically speaking, runs their lodges. There's a small committee that takes care of all the business, and the rest of Masonry, the fun part of Masonry, is the only thing that the vast majority of the members, have the privilege of experiencing, which I think is a really interesting way to go about it.
Well, and it's kind of funny that you point that out. Now, Shrine, and I'm not in Shrine, and this was during the sales pitch with Shriners. Never get into a sales pitch with a Shriner, I'm just saying. But
it's a bad place to be.
Oh man, honestly, and they literally back you into a corner. It gets kind of scary, actually. I'm still in pre-petition phase, apparently. This is what I've been told. So I said to him, part of the sales pitch, because I do contracting for a living, and I said, now if I started a tabletop role-playing group, would I be able to start a club? And their first question to me, and this just threw me, was, well, how would you raise money for the hospitals with that club? I was like, what? Well, no, I just want to start this club to have fun. They're like, well, I know, but how are you going to get money for the hospitals? And so I think, it's just as bizarre. Maybe it's we've built weird purpose-driven things into our own activities that we forget why we are here. And I think it's really that we're a fraternity, so we do fraternal things. And I think a lot of this stuff, as you said earlier, Jason, is there's such a strange bureaucracy built into this whole system, and it really just kind of morphs and just makes everything just bizarro world, in terms of how we just interact with each other.
Yep. Hey, so real quick, here's some of the ones, the flyers that were made during some of the events. Spent a lot of time trying to get some good speakers. Here's one where we had the National Cathedral operative Mason. He's not a Freemason. Joe Alonzo come talk about his stonework that he did at the National Cathedral. But you can see he made it colorful and visual. And another one I wanted to show was brewing and Freemasonry that we had one of our past masters in the area talk about beer. So you can see very colorful, very splashy, both literally and figuratively. And when you're sending out an email, having this attached kind of helps catch the eye a little better than just a textual come on down.
And you had John Lovett's post for the picture. That's awesome.
Ouch!
I'll tell him that. That's great.
We're not. Yeah, I was going to say we're not going to tell Brother Carl about that.
Ooh. I wanted to mention that we did when I was at Eola Lodge, we did a family game night, and we promoted it through email, through Facebook. I think we made a few phone calls as well. It was well attended. There was no money raised. All we did was, set a night out so that we could bring the kids, the families, the wives, and one wife per brother, no more than one though. And we had a pretty good time. It was It was he distracted me there. It was a lot of fun because we got a chance to meet some of the wives of the brothers that all they knew about masonry is like the husband just leaves the house for a few hours and then comes super late, and here they got to put a name to a face, get to meet other people's families, get a chance to play board game. We played Clue, and for the people that know me really well, know that Clue is an important game in my family. And yeah, and my wife wins every time, which is super annoying. But do that. Bring your favorite game. Like you could. It's super simple to do something like that. One night, everybody brings their favorite board game. Everybody goes in a separate table, have some fun, and build fellowship with that way.
So, kind of along that same lines, Brother Craig Bennett has said that one thing that happens after each meeting is that a bunch of his brethren actually go across the street to McDonald's, and they do a bunch of different events in his lodge. The other week, many of the guys went out on a weekend to play putt-putt, and Craig thinks that there are a lot of lodges that just need to do this, have family days, and bring people together to make that sense of community, as opposed to being kind of just a community of one. And I think, when it gets down to it, when you're talking about the fraternal aspect of Masonry, like building community is just something that is just so incredibly important.
I sure hope you bring up Craig Bennett's other post on social media.
Yeah, why don't you screen share that, John?
I can't wait. So apparently Craig Bennett is a fan of the video games, of which the latest and greatest craze this week is not Pokemon Go, it is No Man's Sky.
I haven't bought into the concept yet.
But apparently there are like quadrillions of planets you can explore, and it's an open universe, and basically if you spot it, you can own it, you can plant a flag, you can name it, and sure enough, Craig has done us the honor of naming a planet after the Masonic Roundtable. So we have a planet in No Man's Sky.
And you've also got the awkward Bernie Sanders ad next to it.
Yes, ad block, man. I need to get ad block.
Craig,
But
how much is it going to cost for WCY Planet of the Sun? Well,
see, the other trick is now there are 4 other quadrillion planets that other people are going to have. So good luck finding it. But once you explore a planet, you can also name creatures. So Craig has continued the effort to name a creature for Juan. For Jason,
I got the space slug. I don't get it.
more Slurm.
oh, that's awesome.
Robert,
Oh, Slurm.
Wait, what did I get there?
some bird-looking thing. Follow your nose, Toucan Sam.
Oh man, that is BA.
And I like my finned thing that looked like his face got caught in a shredder. And then there's your other little space slug. So
I bet your thing DJs, John.
nice. Oh, Nick's thing looks like the dinosaur from Jurassic Park.
It's a space slug with wings.
This is awesome. I just like that it. What is that? It's like Dune meets the Slurm thing. Yeah.
The TMR must flow.
Thanks, Craig. That's awesome. Let's start wrapping it up.
Time to wrap up.
Good stuff. Wow, the time just flew by. Let's start with Juan to start our final thoughts.
And I was muted, and now it has been a fun conversation. The main point is, look outside of your own lodge, look outside of your own tradition, and try to find out what's working elsewhere, what's working for them. And like Nick said, if you have a purpose for it, be clear about it. Is the purpose just fellowship? Then put all of the pieces in place so that fellowship can happen. If your purpose is to raise funds, then try to make the right decisions and invite people, invite them, and communicate and communicate and communicate, like John said. But if it doesn't go very well the first time, make sure you collect data. Find out, ask questions, take people aside, ask them, what did you like about today? What didn't you like? The people that perhaps don't show up, ask them, why didn't you go? Like, did you have something else, or was it not interesting for you? But then you arm yourself with enough information so that you can make better decisions and have more productive events in the future. I hope that you take some of this advice and it helps you. If it does, let us know. Go to the Masonic Roundtable and or to our Facebook page and put a comment. Let us know, we tried this and it worked. And we tried this and it didn't work. And perhaps other brothers can read it and also use that data to have better events themselves. For me, brothers, I have an episode coming up on the Winding Stairs. I have some really exciting guests. Some of the you don't want to miss it. I'm gonna give you just a little hint, but we're gonna be talking about one-day classes. I will be publishing it within a day or two, and we have some really good information in there. And second, I just released the Gentleman's Brotherhood podcast, and I need as many brothers as possible to go check it out. It's on iTunes, or go to thegentleman'sbrotherhood.com and give me a rating and a review. Let me know what you think about it. If you like it, what would you add? I'd love to hear it. Thank you, brothers.
Well, congrats, Juan.
Thank you.
Nick.
Sure. Final thoughts. Start by knowing your enemy. His name is television. After that, you figure out what your brothers want to do. Best way to do that is literally in my lodge. We sent out a survey. We really did use SurveyMonkey, and it really did work. We were able to figure out priorities of all the lodge brothers, and we really got everybody together. I think it was one of the best activities, only because, and I know John knows this from conducting surveys himself, they really do present a lot of really good information, and they really do take a pulse. And then after that, just try new things. Just look at the other section, the other comments, and see what those guys said, and then try it out. We did crazy stuff like that. We had a lot of fun, and we pulled ourselves from dead land. I mean, Corinthian was on a death spiral, and we pulled it out just because we were able to figure out what everybody's priorities were. So I have a blog, millennialfreemason.com. I hope to publish my blog post on Thursday. You'll like it, I think. I don't know. And then I'm also supposed to apologize to Rob Wingader, because I totally forgot to mention his name on Masonic Monday, because he did not use Cy Young. He used Denton True Young, which is Cy Young's true name. So congratulations, bud. And with that, keep searching for something.
And if you're wrong, Nick, they'll let you know. Robert.
So, final thoughts. Quick anecdote. Went to a first degree at the most amazing place you could ever possibly go see a first degree. Not the House of the Temple, the George Washington Masonic Memorial. Oh my God. I could tell you about the 100 brothers that attended a first degree there, because it's at this huge, amazing place. And Andrew Hammer was delivering lectures, and in actuality, there were just the officers and 3 sideliners. So what I want you guys to know is that this is a problem everywhere, participation-wise, not just in your local lodges. So we need to figure out something. And when your lodge participation, your typical guys that come out for degrees are 16 to 20 people, the same people who come out year after year after year. And if you go back and you audit your books, you're going to find that it's probably the same number year after year after year. It's that same percentage of people. It's 10 to 20 guys max usually. Sometimes you got guys who are doubling up on positions just to open. What can we do? Nick gave a great idea, a survey, And I thought, what could I even ask these guys and make it the easiest way possible to figure out? And that would just be asking one question. I have 350 members of my lodge. We have an average of 17 guys who show up. Why aren't you here? I just want to know that. Why aren't you here? That's the one question I guess I'd ask. And I think we need to understand lodge culture. And if you don't have a lodge culture, or you can't, or you don't quite understand or know how to define it yet, we need to look at our lodge cultures, define it, come together on it, agree, and then market the living crap out of it. And go with your strengths and push it. And hopefully, like in districts like my own where we have 7 lodges and within 35, 40 minutes, you can get a different flavor anywhere you want to go. But I really think if we focus and drive what makes us strong and try to figure out at least 1 or 2 things where we can improve upon widely, we might see some better participation. So if you like Masonic podcasts, please check out Whence Came You, Sunday nights, 9:30. And with that, I give it back to John and just say thanks for listening.
Thank you, Robert. Jason.
All right, final thoughts. You'd have to give people a reason to show up. Plain and simple. Falling back on the authoritarian, you're going to show up because this is a district event and I told you to, that just doesn't work anymore. People are too busy. Masonry is not the only show in town. So you have to prove to someone that it is worth their time to show up to your event. And the burden of proof is on the member or members who are holding the event. So, market. Try out innovative things. Think of fun ways to get brethren together. Get to the core of why you want to have an event in the first place. There are plenty of times when brethren get together and they're like, "Oh, we should do an event." Why? We're really busy. Do we need to? What's the purpose? What are we trying to gain or change, or what's the purpose behind the event? Oftentimes, we've lost the luxury in Masonry of a lot of times getting folks together just because. There are plenty of other places you can do that, and while I love having fun with my Masonic brethren, and I would get together with them just because, I like to know that I'm getting something out of it, whether it be pancakes or a really great discussion on esoteric Masonry or just a good time with friends and family. That's really the best advice that I can offer. As I'm looking toward the potential of being in the East next year, I'm working out my programs. I'm trying to say, okay, what would people actually be interested in coming to Lodge to learn about? That's kind of my number one priority. I want to talk about things that are interesting to the group, as long as they tie back to Masonry. That's kind of a sticking point for me. The talk has to be related to Masonry in some way, because otherwise it's not Masonic education.
Ooh, sounds like another topic for another day.
Ooh, yeah.
Thank you, Jason. And the worst part about going last is if you let Jason talk long enough, he'll take all of your ideas. So have a purpose and have fun. So that's all what I was going to add. So with that, thanks for watching and keep searching for more light. Have a good night.